Before we going a bit more in the details, I wanted just to give you some elements on the situations of the farmers in Ukraine. So the farmers in Ukraine, you have very big companies. You may know a number of them who are exporting at worldwide level. You have the medium-sized companies, what Denis was mentioning, is being planned to be supported by the multilateral institutions. Oh, it's coming, yes. And you have the very small farmers, the rural farmers, which are also very efficient. So in fact, it's coming. So FAO did studies since we arrived. So FAO was there in 2014, been established in Ukraine in 2014. And during the war, we didn't move out. We stay and we develop and we change the way we're doing it. We're doing the job. So first of things, I'm going to share you the information we collected from the ground. Because there's a lot of speaking about Ukraine, but what is very important is to follow a bit what is the reality and the data on the ground. So what we know at the moment, there was a huge impact on agricultural sectors. It's worth repeating it. Because it's not just, we're just constrained by the export. There is a huge impact on the capacity of production of Ukraine. 25% of the rural households, and that's as a very small farmers, but they are very important in order to maintain the small economy at rural levels, and that we know very well in Italy, stopped at all completely the agriculture or reduced drastically the production. And of course, the situation is very difficult on the contact line, where nobody wants to invest, while in fact, it's there we should invest. The second element is, of course, the problem of input access. In few months, we passed from a very easy accessible fuel, petrols, and very accessible inputs like fertilizers and seeds and seeds and pesticides toward a very complicated system because lack of capacity, lack of stock, but also the imports were becoming more difficult. So there was a problem there, and the structure has been seriously checked. Of course, energy supplies have been damaged. You see that on the televisions. It's a reality. A number of infrastructure has been destroyed, and farmers face problem of energy. And actually, the energy issues is one of the most important elements as reducing the cost of energy into the agricultural sectors, but also looking at the agricultural sectors as one of the source of energy fuel. And then, of course, the forecast, but I will not go very fast because Denis presented very well. The forecast of the productions has been halved or reduced by 1/3 since last year. And again, this year, it's a huge concern. So next slide. Okay. So three words. What the consequences? Contraction of agricultural productions due to increase of production costs. So there is a change of paradigm. We're changing the way we're doing business in agriculture in Ukraine because, in fact, the factors are changing. The logistical export is becoming more complicated. Grazie. Devo premere sul verde o sul rosso? Rosso. Verde. And so the first element is, in fact, the production increase, so the cost of increasing. So, in fact, there is a need to rethink the way we do business in agribusiness in Ukraine. In particular, the rough productions, the grain productions, maybe not the only best productions advantage for Ukraine. They need to diversify. They need to go on more processed and to focus on the quality products. And I think that's why Italy could be interesting in that, because you have a good experience on that in a number of different sectors. The delivery failures, it's a problem. And the situation is still difficult to improve, but they are very good infrastructure in Ukraine. Excellent infrastructure of transport, storage, and capacity. And even as a FAO, we distributed 6 million tons of temporary storage of grain. I mean, the capacity of Ukrainians to reinstall and to repair and to redo the system was very impressive. So if you see the situation is not being destroyed in terms of infrastructure, you are benefiting from a very good infrastructure sectors there. And of course, the problem, and I will not go very far on this one, you have, of course, the mining, and Denis was presenting it. So since I am autonomous. Here, I will not go too much in details because I am FAO, so you have to give you graph. But you can look at into that. But it's very important because we go in the details. We're trying to analyze what is really we're talking. We're not just blah, blah thing. We are really trying to give you information we're collecting from the ground. So in this, you see that the impact is just illustrating the impact of this war, not only on the front line and where there is bombing, but all the sectors at the same time. So this country is been facing the damage of the war, not just only at the front line, where in fact it's more intensive, but also all around the country. But they are resilient because the war is just started. I mean, it's just 1 year, it's long, but it's just at this moment. And the thing is, in fact, the capacity of the farmers are still very resilient. They have the capacity to react, and they are ready to react. So you can find partners here who are very, very, very initiative driven and risk driven also in order to make new business or to develop a business or to maintain the business. So we will leave you at the presentation if you want to go too much in details. I don't want to take too much time. This is an illustration from what Denis was presenting you at a national level. This is a geographical presentation, visualizations on where the companies, the farmers have been affected by the mines. And you see it's, of course, obvious. It's on the contact line, on the front line. However, you see that there is some area was very, very problematic. So this is also a large activities and business in order to do, in particular, the demining, identification, monitoring, but also decontamination. FAO has a project which is going to go on the decontamination or the melioration of the soils in order to make sure that what's going to be produced after, it's certified to be free of heavy metals, etc., etc. Even if it's not necessarily coming, we can have this kind of questions, in particular from the consumers. Let me go fast. So let me explain you why I'm talking here and what I am doing in Ukraine, because I'm paid for that. So I think it's very important that you understand that at the moment, the multilateral institutions are in need in Ukraine in order to help the public sectors, but also the private sector in order to restart the situations. Because of course, if we let the things go, nothing can happen. So what we did last year is immediately we distributed seeds. Most of the seeds have been produced in Ukraine. Some of them, they're all coming from Europe at last. So that's what's very important, because the Ukraine rural area is very important in terms of food security in the country. It's also very important in terms of local economical activities. So this is a very large number of very small farmings, 2 hectares, 3 hectares, time to time is few or 3 porks working, etc. But these activities, these people are very important for the total food securities, but it's also there that maybe in the future, you can have some companies emerging in terms of small-scale companies with a very specific value chains with IGP and activity like that. The other element, of course, is we did distributed seeds last year. It was very important in order to maintain the capacity of production of Ukraine, because if you have Ukraine decreasing their productions, we will have impact on the global sector. And again, this year, it's a concern of the government and FAO that, in fact, the farmers facing the price of transport, facing the price, the uncertainty on the Black Grain Sea initiative at the moment, and we hope it's going to be extended and renewed. We have a need to give an incentive to these farmers in order to be able to produce and to export. Because even if you have some logistical issue at the moment, the grain from Ukraine is absolutely needed and very crucial for the global food security. And this is something important to remember on that. So there is a lot of work to be done also in the sectors for private company, in particular in the work of logistics and storage, but not only is improving the supplies. And then as FAO, and it's a bit an illustration of what Denis was presenting on the support to the farmers, we're doing matching grants. We're trying to develop short cycles value chains. We're trying to support also the farmers directly with cash and activities supporting the development of new ideas and new activities in terms of productions in order to have Ukraine diversifying its productions in agricultural sectors and having something focusing. Because we have to remember that in Ukraine, it's not just European market. There are very huge imprints in the Eastern and in Eastern Asia and Central Asia, where in fact there is a lot of market already developing and flourishing. In particular, I'm thinking about Japan, but not only, where in fact Ukraine is developing a lot of export and activities. And then there is a lot of things to be developed on that. Let me continue. So in a nutshell, I will explain you what we're doing as FAO, and of course we are interested as we are working closely with the private sector, because you will see in the pillar 2 is what we're talking about. The pillar 1 is, of course, as you may know, if some people know a bit FAO, we are very focusing on the priorities in order to maintain the food security and the wealth. The capacity of the rural population has been seriously affected by the war. We're talking about elders. We're talking about single-headed women groups. So it's women alone in the farms trying to work and to maintain the activities. They are in the front line and they are in need of help. So what we're trying to do is to help them to maintain their livelihood, not to leave, because a number of people, my colleagues from IOM, for example, or food program will tell you there's a lot of IDPs, the people who's moving internally in the country or seeking refuge in Europe. And we're having a lot of people who manage to move. But the most vulnerable is the people not moving, the people staying in the front, because you have the cows, you have the field, and you will not lose the field and the cows. As a farmers, I can understand that. And in fact, the situation here, these populations are the most exposed to the impact of the war. That's why as FAO, we want to focus on that. And on the other side, these people are receiving food assistance from the food program. 100,000 of them receiving food assistance in form of cash or food. This is paradoxal. This is not acceptable to have farmers receiving food in terms of emergency. So what we want to do in FAO with the government, but also with the other UN organizations, is to make sure that 500,000 of these people are getting out of the future needs of social assistance. Because you don't want to have Ukraine depending on international community paying for the social assistance, also having Ukraine having a very huge debt in this. So for us, the job of FAO is to get all these people outside of the need of food assistance. And of course, we do that in collaboration with our sisters agencies like World Food Program in order to make sure that these people, by 2024, by 2025, they don't go anymore on the social protection system and they are autonomous, they go back on a normal situation. That's very important. This is a battle not only for humanitarian response, but also for the future of equilibrium of the budget of Ukraine. And of course, to focus the effort of reconstructions more on something that will be durable. The second pillar for us in FAO is, as you are here there, I think this is a bit the objective. I'm a bit long. Okay, I will continue.
Yes, I have to ask you to speed up a little bit.
Okay, I'm finishing. Thank you. So we're finishing there. Is to try to work on the restoring critical agricultural nations. So crop, I already explained. The energy for food for us is very important. We need to reduce the consumption of energy in the farming system, but also, and there is a new technology to be done, but also there is a possibility and opportunity to use the farmland as a producing of energy, biofuel in particular. And this is something very new. It's at the beginning in Ukraine, and I think there is a lot of opportunity to develop some activities there. Then, of course, value chain development, we explain diversifications, in particular in quality products and luxury products, value chain. And of course, the demining and the recovery that Denis was explaining. Then the pillar 3, of course, is supporting the government. We did move the seeds, the foundation seeds from Kharkiv to Lviv in order to protect them from the bombs. We are renovating the laboratory, veterinary laboratory services all across the countries in order for them to maintain the capacity of coverage and to avoid any episodes. So there is a number of activities we do in support of the government. Partnership with Ukraine. I mean, we are together today with Denis. I don't have to explain too much. We are very close and we are working on it because we do believe that the Ukrainian government takes the good actions and are very, very pragmatic and action oriented. And FAO is supporting this. And I think agribusiness, this is what's the most important. I am sorry, I cannot talk about it too much, but this is a bit restoration of land and soils and clearance of mines. That there is a lot of private companies who are needed in these sectors. Diversification of agricultural productions and processings. A lot of companies are needed also in these different sectors. I'm thinking about fruits, I'm thinking about grain, flour, I'm thinking about also a chief product like wine, or like salaison, sorry, so sausages and things like that, so prosciutto. So this is very important in the future for Ukraine. There is a lot of things to be done here. Voilà. Creation of luxury brands, Ivory products. That's very important also here. There is a very market. Once again, we have to think that it's about Ukraine, internal market, but also their capacity to export to Middle East and Asia. And of course, we are in a full digitalization process in Ukraine. They are going very fast. And I think this is also, there's a number of services to be developed in this kind of activities. Voilà. And last, for the people more oriented to the heavy machinery, of course, the storage capacity has to be totally rethinked because we have to switch from the former system going more on the Black Sea, but they have to diversify the localizations and the type of storage capacity to make it more flexible and also to make it also more equilibrated between the East and the east of the country, the west and the east of the country. Thank you. Sorry for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Gauthier. I would like to introduce now Mr. Michael Yuk, that is the Senior Engineer in Bioeconomy Division of European Investment Bank.
We, European Investment Bank, as the financial arm of the European Union, should match quite nicely both the priorities and the things identified by the FAO. I will not focus too much on what we did. Since the war started, we provided immediate financial support early February last year in 668 million, and then subsequently we provided other types of support, not for agriculture in particular, but for other sectors. Quickly, EIB is active in Ukraine since 2005. The first project was signed in 2007. And at the time, until the war began, the activities were supported by the EU mandates, namely the guarantee coverage received from the Commission. And together with the EBRD and the World Bank, our colleagues from the multilateral institutions, the EIB is one of the top 3 largest investors in Ukraine, with signed projects of more than 7 billion euro. In the past, so you will understand now, you'll get a flavor of the types of projects that EIB funded. Unlike FAO, we do not develop projects. We have to find good projects. And we found quite a few projects in Ukraine. Until now, we have over 1 billion euro in projects. I can give you a flavor. We funded cereals and oilseeds, logistics and storage, which were identified as priority by both predecessors. Vegetable oil processing, obviously a main priority for the country. We funded tomato production and processing, integrated production and processing of tomato into tomato paste. Primary agriculture modernization, and here we have everything related to primary production. Feed production. We focused on energy efficiency and renewable energy generation in the past. But the priorities didn't change. They just adjust slightly now with what we learned from the government, that they have the priorities focused on. This is what we do in our sector in bioeconomy. We support entire value chains, and we try to unlock production potential in a sustainable, and we call it resource efficient manner. Who can we fund? We can fund private and public sectors. This is interesting about the EIB, because we go from government support to the government, and then we go to large companies, we support medium companies, and we go to small farmers with using different instruments, obviously. And we cover everything, not only agriculture, but if you're interested, we also cover fisheries and aquaculture and forest, entire value chains. As you can see, cooperatives, agribusiness, any corporates active in bioeconomy, and public sector institutions along the value chains. I will refer to value chains quite often. Basically, now you will understand better what EIB does in bioeconomy sector, but I will focus on agriculture sector. We focus on food hygiene, quality, and security, food chain resilience, and sustainability. We support small farmers and agri-food SMEs. As you can see, everything that we do matches the needs identified by the people that are on the ground. Research, digitalization, and innovation in agriculture. Climate smart, resource efficient, and environmentally conscious production and transformation of food and biomass. Not only in food, of course. Sustainable and inclusive rural development. And probably this is not a priority, but it will become a priority in Ukraine shortly, restitution and protection of natural habitats. Now, on top of the financial support, we also provide a third pillar, or two, and the second and the third pillar, which are technical assistance and financial advisory support. And as we speak, we still have an operation, a technical assistance operation in the country. And as a matter of fact, following the request from the Ministry of Agriculture, we tailored our TA to support them with feasibility studies on certain priority interventions. Now, what we have a tool called Apex loan. I will not use this. I will call it value chain support. And here we had a project that was signed a few years ago with the government of Ukraine to support funding for entire value chains. And we identified at the time the priority being cereals and oilseeds, fisheries and aquaculture. These were the priorities at the time. And I don't think they've changed much. But just to understand how we support, it's a loan to the government, not meant solely for governmental institutions. I would say that mainly the vast majority of the funds are supposed to go to local companies through financial intermediaries. But also we support public institutions that actually we finance public institutions supporting the value chains, namely testing laboratories, universities, research and vocational training facilities. So we try to provide the support from all ends to a given value chain. And of course, all private sector participants. Can we please change the slide? Oh, thank you. Now, direct lending for medium and large companies, we provide direct support. I will give you some examples now so you understand, as private companies in Italy, the types of interventions that we support to private companies in Ukraine. Infrastructure and logistics, grain and oilseeds drying, storage, processing and logistics capacity, transshipment terminals, both on water and inland, because as we heard from our colleagues before, the priorities now change, and it's interesting to have not only large transshipment terminals on water, but it's good to have backup solutions available. Agriculture equipment and field machinery, we can fund the purchase of this type of equipment. Food processing plant. I told you that we supported tomato processing, vegetable oil processing, other types of transformation. Feed production. Climate-related actions like energy and resource efficiency interventions, climate adaptation, because we are the climate bank of the EU for a few years now. We focus our intervention there, as well as modernization of agricultural practices. Complementary to government support and large and medium companies, we also support small SMEs and small farmers. We cannot do it directly because we do not have the structure for this. What we do, we use local commercial banks with a proper footprint and understanding of agriculture sector, and we give them good, well-priced funding to own land to this segment of the agriculture. And with this, I will finish. And again, thank you.
Thank you. So let me start from saying a few words about the BRD. We're international financial organization, and in Ukraine, we are the largest institutional investor. Since inception in 1992, we financed over 500 projects for the total amount of 18 billion euros. And our current portfolio is 4.6 billion, which is spread between three large sectors: sustainable infrastructure, which is the biggest portion, industry, commerce, and agribusiness, and financial institutions. Next slide, please. We're proud that our response to the war in Ukraine was very swift. Already in March last year, we approved the Resilience and Livelihood Program, and we take Ukrainian risk on our balance sheet, effectively leveraging donor support. Overall, we committed to invest 3 billion euros over 2 years in all sectors in the country. And last year already, our investment reached 1.5 billion. We identified the following focus areas. This is support trade and resilience of financial sector of banks, energy security and vital municipal infrastructure, resilience of private corporate sector, and of course, food security. Can you please turn the next slide? Thank you. So to briefly outline what we did last year, we provided emergency liquidity last summer to Ukrainian Railways Company, to National Power Grid Operator, to keep trains running and lights on, and later for emergency repairs of the National Power Grid damaged by strikes on civilian infrastructure. The BRD also provided the gas company Naftogaz with financial package to compensate the loss of natural gas. These were the most significant financing provided, but of course we also supported the food security by providing financing to the agribusiness value chain for the total amount of 280 million. Next slide, please. I would also like to briefly introduce the agribusiness sector team in the BRD in general. There are 67 team members with half of staff located in resident offices in our countries of operations, including Ukraine, which is now temporarily relocated to Poland, but we hope to be back very soon. The rest of the team is based in HQ in London. There are 224 projects in the current 3 billion euro portfolio. Annual average investment volume amounts to 780-800 million euro. We finance both large companies and SMEs, both multinational and local businesses. While considering and developing projects in agribusiness sector, we focus on sustainability, resource efficiency, inclusion, improvement of business standards, and of course, with global food security as an underlying theme. Next slide, please. So just a general overview of how a BRD can support companies and investors. There are various types of instruments we use. It can be senior loan with structure tailored for project requirements. In some cases, bank can consider financing of greenfield projects with full or limited recourse to the sponsor. The bank can also do equity investments, including into joint ventures. When we participate as a minority shareholder in a joint venture, for example, which is good fit when there are several investors, for example, foreign and local. Additionally, BRD mobilizes donor financing for a number of different technical assistance to support areas for a project we're financing. Next slide, please. Well, I will not stop here, given the time constraints. We already heard earlier today about the importance of agribusiness sector in Ukraine overall and globally, and that the production in the country can feed 400 million people in the world. So let's keep it. Next slide. Here is also just a snapshot of the impact of the war. According to the estimations, the direct damages were calculated as 6.6 billion already, and indirect losses, which are caused by all the disruptions resulted from the war, are calculated to amount as of the end of last year for another $34 billion. Next slide, please. As a result of all the issues Ukrainian agri companies are faced last year, the first most significant financing need was
I can ask you to speed up a little bit because we are very late.
Yeah. So this is the important part. So these are the instruments which we deployed last year to support the agribusiness sector and food security. These are basically three types of instruments. This is direct lending provided by BRD to the companies. Another instrument is the financing via risk sharing programs with the Ukrainian commercial banks, where we participate. in sharing the risk with the bank covering portion of the loan, and trade facilitation programs and portfolio risk sharing when indirectly we cover certain portion of risk for the commercial banks to reach out to micro and small and medium enterprises. In the end, I would like to mention that the BRD's focus in 2022 has been on providing this liquidity to the existing clients. This is now expanding to support limited capex to keep current operations running. We're also selectively looking at financing non-existing clients, other businesses, to provide liquidity or investment loans. In the current environment, we do not provide refinancing, only working capital and investments. We plan to remain agile this year in 2023, responding to changing circumstances and making adjustments according to the needs on the ground as we did last year. We would be happy to support foreign companies willing to invest in the country, starting from today. When circumstances allow, as the largest institutional investor in the country, the BRD is ready and willing to play a central role in reconstruction, investing into companies and applying modern technologies in line with the EU standards to make Ukraine even stronger in the end. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. The last but not the least.